This is concepts video 4 for the GeoSketch application describing the inferencing in GeoSketch. The reason that GeoSketch inferencing is different than the standard inferencing in SketchUp is because we're usually constructing geometry by projecting from the 2D image space of an aux view to the 3D modeling space. So for example, these two edges in the image are not 90 degrees to each other, but when we project those edges into the modeling space, the corner will be 90 degrees, and we need to make sure that we obtain that 90-degree angle as we're constructing these models. So for example, the inferencing will be relative to lines and arcs, so you don't necessarily have to be constructing geometry from the aux views. We can just construct it on the XY plane as normal SketchUp tools. If I construct a line, then the next edge is perpendicular to it. It's highlighted and the tooltip tells me that it's perpendicular to the previous edge. We can control how close it has to be being perpendicular using the inferencing context menu. Both the point inference tolerance, which is specified in pixels, and the angle inference tolerance, which is specified in degrees, can be modified. So for example, we'll change the angle tolerance to 15 degrees, and now it'll snap to the inferenced angle as soon as I get within 15 degrees. We can also change the point inference tolerance. I'll change the angle inference tolerance back to 5 degrees, but I'll change the point inference tolerance to 20 pixels. So now if I infer to the endpoint of this edge, I only have to get within 20 pixels of it before it snaps to it. And those are a matter of personal preference. The defaults are 5 degrees and 10 pixels, but if you wish you can set those to either tighter values or looser values. There's also inferencing on arcs. So now we've created this edge parallel to the first edge, and then we'll see that it's also at its vertex. Now we'll go and create an arc, and it'll tell us that that arc is tangent to both of the edges, and it can be tangent on either side. Now if I go back and erase that previous line and create a line that isn't parallel, then we may not be able to obtain an arc that's tangent to both, so it'll tell us that it's just tangent to one or the other. So now it's tangent to the arc, and it highlights the adjacent edge that it's tangent to. If we move out further, then it's tangent to the other one, and it works on the other side as well. And there's also doing Control Z, by the way, to move back to other geometry. I create another arc. There's also inferencing of edges to arcs. So for example, if I create a line, it'll tell me that it's tangent to the existing arc. Or I can start at this end and it'll tell me that I'm on the arc endpoint, and then it'll tell me that I'm tangent to the arc, and it'll tell me if I'm at the vertex of the other end. So in addition to those types of inferencing, we also have the setting for doing inferencing to axes. So by default it's off, but if I start building a line, for example at this endpoint, and it does perpendicularity first, so there it's telling me that it's perpendicular to the green axis, or that I'm perpendicular to the green axis and at the vertex, and it draws a guideline. Or if I go in this direction, it tells me that I'm perpendicular to the red axis. And again, perpendicularity is the higher priority for the inferencing. If I go to the context menu and turn the axes inferencing off, now it no longer detects being perpendicular to the green or the red axis. And the last type of inferencing is specific to the pitched roof tool. So we'll open another model, and we'll just build a simple roof, pitched roof building. Now when we're defining an extension to this, such as a wing of a building, we'll usually be working up at the ridge line, and this inferencing will tell us when the first point is on the edge, the ridge edge of an existing roof, or if it's on one of the other edges or on the roof face. And then when I do the second point, it'll tell me when that edge, the ridge line of the extension that I'm building, is perpendicular to the horizontal of that existing roof line. So that's useful because normally they are perpendicular, but once again, if you hold down the control key, then inferencing is turned off and you don't get that. But in this case, we want to be perpendicular to that edge. And then finally, when we define the second point of that ridge line, as we're doing the width of the building, or the eave, it'll tell us when the eaves match. So it'll tell us that the eave there matches the eave of the existing roof line. And once again, if you don't want that, you can hold down the control key and it won't snap to being on the same ridge line. So if I release the control key, it will, and then when I create that roof, they'll have matching eaves. Now when I'm working out at the edge, when I select the first point, it'll tell me when it's perpendicular to this roof line or the other roof line. And in this case, once again, I'll snap to the eave and they'll make the edges line up. But of course, it may be the case that you don't want the eaves to match, so you can start on the roof face, and in this case, hold down the control key so it won't snap to the ridges being the same. And now it'll create a multi-level roof, or if you were doing something like a dormer. Get your perpendicularity and create a dormer. So in the next video, we'll be doing an example of the inferencing being applied to aux views.